accordions for us.
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I'm moving mine. Is mine here?
That's yours. We're just scooching it up.
What?
We're just scooching it up a bit. So you're good.
You're good.
Oh, I thought. Nope, you're good. I was just fixing your chair.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It is truly our pleasure to come and be able to perform for you. That was America the Beautiful, arranged by Darman Meter. And before we get started, if anybody does happen to have a cell phone, chances are if it goes off, it's not in the key that we're singing in, and we're really easily confused. So if you wouldn't mind silencing those, we'd appreciate that. The next number that we're going to sing is written by George M. Cohan. Most of you probably remember the movie that James Cagney starred in 1942, the biopic Yankee Doodle Dandy. He's iconic in that movie. He did all of his singing and dancing in the style of George M. Cohan himself and won an Oscar for it. Unfortunately, in the 1940s, biopics really didn't pay that much attention to actual facts. They didn't let that get in the way. So, a couple of very brief facts about him. First of all, he was born into the vaudeville circuit and performed with his parents, parents and his sister. And he began performing when he was just a toddler. Started writing skits as a teenager. Published his first song when he was 15. He published his first Broadway play at the age of 23. His first popular Broadway play by the time he was 25, it was called Little Johnny Jones. Two of the songs that we're singing are actually from that musical. By the time he died in 1942 at the age of 64, he had written over 300 pieces of music. He had written or contributed to 50 different Broadway shows. He was the first person in the arts to get the Congressional Medal of Honor. Up until that point, it only went to scientists, explorers, and political figures. And he is the only actor to have a statue on Broadway. So, 3 of George M. Cohan's 300 songs.
Doodle dandy, a Yankee doodle do or die, a real life nephew of my Uncle Sam's, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee doodle Joe. Yankee doodle doodle can't do just right, the lovely roses I am. A Yankee Doodle, oh, give my regards to Broadway, remember me to Herald Square, tell all the gang at 42nd Street that I will soon be there, whisper of how I'm yearning to mingle with the old time throng. Give my regards to old Broadway and say that I'll be there. There long. You're wrong, grand old flag. You're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you reign. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true, neath the red, white, and blue, where there's never a post or brag. But should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. Give my regards, give my regards to Broadway, Broadway, to Broadway.
So before there was George M. Cohan, there was Stephen Foster. Originally, I thought Stephen Foster was from Kentucky because he wrote My Old Kentucky Home, and I grew up close to Kentucky. But it turns out that he was from and lived most of his life in Pennsylvania. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just different. So at the time that Stephen was prolific with his composing, he was regarded as the father of American music. He wrote over 200 songs, which compared to George M. Cohan may not be that many, but he also only lived 37 years. Many of his songs are very familiar. In fact, My Old Kentucky Home is the official state song of Kentucky, and Old Folks at Home, also known as Swanee River, is the official state song of Florida. Tonight we're going to be singing a collection that includes Camptown Races, Gentle Annie, I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, and Old Susanna. So I hope you enjoy them.
Calvary's track. For I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Canton racetrack, Canton racetrack, Canton racetrack, sing this song. Do-da, 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 Canton racetrack, Canton racetrack. Oh, do that day. Everybody on a bobtail bag. Somebody bet on the grave. 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 Thou wilt come no more, gentle Annie, like a flower, a spirit did depart. Thou art gone, alas, like the many that have bloomed in the summer of my heart. Shall we never more behold thee, never hear thy winning voice again? When the springtime comes, gentle Annie, when the wildflowers are scattered o'er the plain. Oh, Susanna, 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 it's so bright today out there, the boys are dressed so sky, the sun's so high, don't you dare, Susanna, don't you cry, oh, Susanna.
Hi, everybody. So, folk songs traditionally were not composed in any sort of meaningful way, which means that the people who often sang them could change the lyrics or the tune depending on what they wanted to sing, to say, or what kind of performance they were giving. And there were many, so that means there were many different versions out there. So the song that you may know may not be what you hear someone else sing or say. And if you combine all of that with America being the melting pot of different cultures and nationalities, you get a very fun, unique, and exciting style of music. So in this song, we have three different folk songs. The first is Cindy, which is a joyful and energetic song dating back to the late 1800s to early 1900s. And it's thought to have originated from North Carolina and was commonly found in elementary school music programs in the 1930s and 50s. Next is The Water is Wide, which is a moving and beautiful piece of music, and the original tune and lyrics are thought to have come from the 1620s in Scotland. But since America was founded and built, it grew into part of our culture as well. And the last tune is Old Dan Tucker, which is a fun and fast little ditty, and the origins aren't exactly clear, but the earliest piece of music that we have was published in 1843. Michael John Trotta arranged these three pieces into a beautiful, beautiful arrangement, creating an exciting and dynamic song. And the first time that I heard it, I fell in love with it, and it's, I think, my favorite song that we sing. Our violinist on this song is Ginny Cooper, and our soloist is Beth Nicholson. And now please enjoy 3 American folk songs arranged by Michael John Trotta.
then some Broadway songs, some folk songs, and this next song is another type called a spiritual. Spirituals were originally sung by the slaves as they worked on the plantations. Some were actually a code that told of how they could escape to freedom. Others were a source of hope and comfort while they worked. After the Civil War, American composers adopted the format and wrote many songs like this one. This song was written in 1927 and gives hope and comfort to all who believe that He's got the whole world in His hands.
He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole wide world in His hands. He's got you and me, brother. You and me, sister. Everyone else in the world. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole wide world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. The whole world in His hands. Not you and me, brother. In His hands, He's got you and me, brother. In His hands, He's got you and me, brother. In His hands, He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got you and me, sister. Oh, yeah. In His hands, He's got you and me, sister. Oh, yeah. In His hands, He's got you and me, sister. Oh, yeah. In His hands, He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got that tiny little baby in His hands. He's got the tiny little baby in His hands. He's got the tiny little baby in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the world in His hands. He's got all the world's children in His hands. He's got all the world's children in His hands. He's got all the world's children in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. In His hands. He's got peace for all nations. In His hands, He's got peace for all nations. In His hands, He's got peace for all nations. In His hands, He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the brothers and the sisters, the little baby, all children, peace for all nations. He's got the whole world in His hands.
Never ready for anything.
Yeah. As I walk down the streets of Laredo, that was good. Write it down. Okay. Put it on the calendar. Okay. As I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a young cowboy all dressed in white linen, all dressed in white linen, as cold as the clay. I see by your outfit that you are a cowboy. I see by your outfit you are a cowboy too. We see by our outfit
can be a cowboy too. Of course, that's the old Smothers Brothers routine of Streets of Laredo. We have somebody who's going to tell us about our version of Streets of Laredo, which isn't quite as humorous as this one.
In this next variation of Streets of Laredo, it's a song composer John David Ernest wrote to fulfill a commission to Whitman College Choral. He was interested in the tradition of the American folk song and took favor to one sometimes referred to as the Cowboy's Lament, which is sometimes associated with the Irish ballad, A Handful of Laurel. The sad song is set by a four-hand piano arrangement, and this variation on the song follows the narrative of the verses that point out the cowboy's realization of having done wrong and his acceptance of his tragic youthful death and his plaintive appeal to his comrades for a final resting place.
We have a little different audience here tonight than we did last night, and I think you can do better on this question than they did. How many of you have heard of the Swingle Singers? Oh, yeah. Not many, but twice as many as last night. So the reason this is interesting is they have been around since 1962, and they're still going today. And they started in Paris, France, like I say, in 1962. They were bored with the mindless or juvenile pop music that was going on at that time, and there were a bunch of serious singers, and they wanted to do something different. So they got together, and the first hit that they created was Bach. They sang Bach, and Bach doesn't have any words, so what they did was they just sang, bop-a-doo-ba-doo, nonsense syllables to Bach, and it turned out to be a hit. And then they went along and they did pop, rock, and jazz, and they just did all kinds of stuff. And this next song that we're going to do is one of their songs. It's the craziest song you're going to hear tonight. It's a bunch of these American country dances, is it called. Just, little kind of frivolous tunes that you sort of dance to, woven around a theme of a fiddler who is in Arkansas fiddling while it's raining and his cabin is leaking and he's all wet, but he won't stop to fix his cabin. He just keeps fiddling these tunes. So we hope you enjoy country dancing.
Did you ever go to meet Uncle Joe? Uncle Joe, did you ever go to meet Uncle Joe? Did you ever go to meet Uncle Joe? Uncle Joe don't mind the weather when the wind don't blow. How about my ladies 3 in a row? How about my ladies 3 in a row? How about my ladies 3 in a row? Don't mind the weather when the wind don't blow.
Grandfather sitting on a railroad track, sing holly wolly doodle all the day. I'll picking his feet with a carpet and sing holly wolly doodle all the day. Pretty well, pretty well, pretty well, pretty well, my fairy fare. For I'm going to Louisiana for to see my Susiana singing holly wolly doodle all the day. Oh, I got a girl and you got none, little Liza Jane. I got a gal that calls me hon, little Liza Jane. Oh, 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 little Liza, little Liza Jane. Oh, little Liza, little Liza Jane. Traveler was riding by that day. They stopped to hear him practicing away. The cabin was afloat and his feet were wet. But the little fiddler didn't really seem to fret. So the stranger told the fiddler man, it really seems to me that you better bend your roof a bit before you watch the sea. The little fiddler man replied as he was fiddling away. You know I couldn't bend it now
out because it's such a rainy day.
Old Dan Tucker's a fine old man, washed his face with a frying pan, combed his hair with a wagon wheel, and died with 2 days. Get out of the way, old Dan Tucker, your team better take the college over. Your team is over 10 years, and old Dan Tucker chases and just looking.
Oh, I love to go out fishing on a sunny summer day, just to watch the perches and the catfish play, with their pennies in their pockets and their pockets in their pants. Would you like to see the ladies do a hoochie coochie dance? Turkey in the straw, ha 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 ha. Turkey in the hay, hey 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 hey. Roll the wedges and roll the knives in their hall, and you get a mug or two and call it turkey in the straw. Yankee Doodle do or die, hey, other than me. Oh, here's canvas stuff and make a turkey happy.
I dance with a gal with a hole in her stocking, and her heel got the rockin', and her toe got the knockin', and I dance with a gal with a hole in her stocking, and we dance by the light of love. Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight? Come out tonight, come out tonight.
Buffalo gals, won't you come out tonight and dance by the light of the moon? A child will reply, that's all quite true, but this I think is a thing for you to do. Get busy on a day that's fair and bright, and go and patch your roof until it's really good and tight. But the fiddler kept was busy, he was practicing a reel. He was tapping out the rhythm with a heavy leather heel. You can get along, he said, because you really are okay. You know that marriage never leaves us from the day it doesn't rain. Thanks for listening, that's all.
Our next song here is Eerie Canal. It was originally written by Thomas Allen sometime between 1905 and 1912 and first recorded in 1913 under the name Low Bridge. The song itself has had a number of different names, the most iconic of which, the most recognizable, have been Eerie Canal, under which we are singing the song, Low Bridge, under which it was first recorded, and Mule Named Sal, as to the content of the song. The song itself was written to commemorate the Eerie Canal and the mule bridges that turned New York into the bustling state that it is today. Our current arrangement is done by Mark Hayes, and is a jazzy little take on the tune that we hope you enjoy.
Eerie,
Well, I winged it last night. I'm not going to quite wing it tonight because I made a glaring error talking about the trenches of New York in World War I. So that didn't happen, obviously. Our last song is God Bless America, a very iconic song written by an even more iconic songwriter that you may have heard of called Irving Berlin. And he has a lot going on. Stephen Foster and George Cohan, because he wrote 1,500 songs in a 60-year career. And trenches, no trenches, 20 were original Broadway shows, 15 were original Hollywood films, and 8 songs were nominated for Academy Awards. So Irving Berlin came over here at the age of 5 from Russia as a Jewish immigrant. In 1918, he first wrote this song during World War I in New York, a place called Yaphank. And he had written it and decided it wasn't quite right for the Yip Yap Hank review that they were doing, so he set it aside. Well, then again, in 1938, before World War II, he revised it and rewrote a little bit of it, and he wrote it as a prayer for World War II, especially with his Jewish background in light of everything with Adolf Hitler. It was first sung by Kate Smith on her radio show. That became the most iconic song that she ever sang, and she also was the most popular singer of this. He wrote it as a prayer, and it includes an introduction that she always sang, but you rarely hear. You'll hear it in our song, so I hope you enjoy it.
thank you very much for all the applause and for enjoying the music. It's always our pleasure to come here. We always look forward to coming here and singing for you. Last night we sang in Mukwonago, sang the same concert, and at this moment, when I started speaking, fireworks started going off outside. Didn't plan it, just happened. I'm listening. Don't hear any tonight, unfortunately. But we really enjoyed performing and learning these songs. The reason I chose this music for this time is because I always pick the music in December after or November. And after the last election, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And people in this choir and we all have different viewpoints on things. And one thing that unites us is music. And it doesn't matter our political affiliations, our thoughts, our religious thoughts, or anything like that. We're all Americans, and we all want our country to be the best it can be. And so that's the reason I chose this music. I chose this music because it brings us together. It's part of our history. And so we wanted to share that with you tonight. And I wanted to share that with my choir. And you heard all of the history behind all of the songs tonight. I didn't tell them what to say. I asked them who wanted to come up and say something, and they came up on their own and did that. So I appreciate them doing that. So I appreciate you coming tonight. People from the community, if you would be so kind, we are raising money for the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship on UW-Whitewater campus. There's a basket back there. Fairhaven has made a donation on behalf of the residents of Fairhaven. But if you're in the community and you're here tonight, we'd appreciate it if you could donate to their cause. They do some great work on campus for the kids, helping guide them, especially some of the kids who are a little bit lost in what they're doing, and help guide them in a good way. So we appreciate it. So thank you very much for your attention and for coming tonight. Appreciate it. God bless.